When it comes to addressing the state and the monoform culture of society, I am aggressive, I am guerrilla, and I want to tear it down. I've been doing youth work for about 13 years in the borough, and when my kind of media career took off, I was very fortunate. One of my first big clients was Google.
As a community, we should be pouring that into our kids, like what YCK is showing. If you invest in young people, you would create young people that would be not only media, that could be academics, that could be on so many levels.
People often talk about how much I help young people, but one thing I really need to reflect is that youth work changed my life.
What I realised about boundaries is, especially for me, I realised this month is I can set boundaries with everybody else, but I need to also set boundaries with myself as well. You know? Because if I don't set boundaries with myself, then no one else is going to respect my boundaries.
11 years in, all that trauma, all that experience, witnessing the stabbings, stopping the stabbings, doing the first aid, losing young people.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 1 of the Other Side of Hope podcast, and today I am with Christoff Taylor, and for me this is like one of the most exciting episodes because I've known Chris for 3 years and Chris does so much for his community. He does a lot of amazing work, runs 2 organisations, is a humanitarianist. And why I got Chris to come and speak about his mental health and wellbeing, because for me it's always like baffling, like how does Chris manage all of this and also manage to have time for Chris? So Chris, welcome. And tell them about what you do and how long you've been doing it for.
So, I'm Christoff Taylor, co-founder of Young Creators UK. Young Creators UK was started with an amazing group of young people about 4 years ago, kind of formally, but it has its roots about 8 years ago. I was trying to build this for a long time before I found a generation who was ready to do it. Outside of that, I've worked as an international humanitarian, specialising in urban search and rescue and kind of disaster response, floods, tsunamis. I've even done national response to the floods a few years ago. I've done work on sort of the rights of affected peoples when media go to disaster zones. Did a lot of talks on that. I'm very anti the exploitation of identity you see in those spaces for fundraising.
Me too.
And yeah, I've been doing youth work for about 13 years in the borough, and when my kind of media career took off, I stayed doing youth work, but I was very fortunate. One of my first big clients was Google, and from that point on for 7 years, didn't even have to market, I was just booked. I was the guy that delivered no matter what, but I just stayed in the community, succeeding visibly. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So how did you get into the field? How did you get in, especially youth work? How did that start and then lead up to what we know as YCK today?
So it's an interesting thing. Like people often talk about how much I help young people, but one thing I really need to reflect is that youth work changed my life. I walked into a youth centre that was just on the end of my road on literally a random Tuesday, just before my 28th birthday. Met a man called Stu, who still mentors me to this day. Incredible human being, someone I look up to a lot. And he did what he does with other young people. He saw something in me that I'd lost sight of myself and believed in me. I went away on a residential that weekend, and from that point on, everything else stems from that moment, Because of various lived experiences, I'd had to leave where I was from at a young age, had to leave home at a young age, and I'd completely lost touch with that part of my past, that kind of raw energy where roasting and that kind of, you just don't get that with some of my other friends. They couldn't really hack it, and getting back in there, it was the first time I'd been allowed to be my authentic self, or a version closer to being authentic in years. So it all stemmed from that, really. Yeah.
Love that. And I think what I like about that was just going into the space and wanting to just help others, then you kind of realize that others helped you. Because I think a lot of the times when you are working on social justice and change, people always, like you said, people always say, oh, I help these people and I save these people's life. And I think for me, I can even relate to that because I know working with marginalized communities and working with migrant communities, that saves me as well. That kind of allowed me to start thinking about my culture and start thinking about different things and heritage, because when you grow up in the UK and you're far away from your parents' culture. You kind of lose that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
being part of that community allowed me to, and being with the elders allowed me to learn. You learn so much from them, even though
Absolutely.
it's like an exchange. Like you give something back to them, but you gain something as well. I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful that you
Yeah.
actually realize that actually I can say that I actually learned, especially from young people, because a lot of people don't want to say that they learned from the youth, and you can say I came back
Completely. I learn from
so
young
much.
people every day. I mean, when I look at the creative and the man that I am now, to where I was, I think I was sort of a quite intelligent, highly creative man with a good moral compass and a good set of values, who's very charismatic and funny. And I kind of walked into a youth centre and I could show that. Now I've been educated, so much by having the privilege and sometimes the horror of people sharing their experiences with me. And you learn, like the cultural intelligence I've picked up along the way, even the fact we're able to build an organisation that is so safe and empowering for such a range of people who come here again and again say, I felt seen, I felt safe, I felt heard. You do that by learning, by listening, by actively changing as a human to make sure, especially as a male, and you really create a space where people can thrive. And that learning from the community, and also that investment of trust, that's a very validating, enriching thing. Obviously there's, as we're going to come to, there's a dark side to that, but we can't only focus on that. Mental health is not just the negative side.
It's also positive, and what you gain from being part of the community as well. And I think, like you said, there is like a balance of the dark side, but also there's the positive, like the self-esteem, like the community healing, I would call it.
Yeah.
What you get from being part of a community, because I think you're right, especially when you look at back to when you're talking about humanitarianism and you're talking about how aid and all of that, and how they show the people that they're supposed to help in that light. But sometimes from people that I've known that have gone back home, who have gone back to those communities, they're like, I don't want to come back.
Yeah.
Because, the kids go out and they play, and they're kind of like a cultural exchange. There's so much community. They feel safe. Everyone's like looking after each other. Sometimes that they feel like they've lacked in the Western world. So it's kind of nice to see things that show, and to see shows that show that balance. And when my friends come back with pictures from back home and videos, like, this is nice, and like, you never see that. You always see people as especially in communities that are like marginalized, you always see them as in need of help. But you never show the balance that they actually are.
I think one of the big truths I've learned working with people in maybe less resource spaces in society, people who don't have a lot help because they understand pooling resources, sharing. And if I ever needed help, I would go to my friends from that world. When White UK was in jeopardy, it wasn't any of our wealthy clients. I'm not throwing shade, I'm just being real. They didn't step in and save us. They had the resources. There's clients we've had on our books that they wouldn't even notice it leaving their account, the amount of money it would take for this company to actually grow in a healthy way and really have capacity. But it wasn't. It was our friends who had come up through it and have been successful and get it. They stepped up, right? They backed it, is how I'd put it. And that has been my experience. That community will give you, everything, because they understand what it's like to need something. And not everyone has that. And that is like a really beautiful and humbling thing.
It's powerful, it is. So the next question is, when was the time you felt like you had to put yourself first and the cause had to stop?
It's very difficult, I think, for me. I'm very, very driven. Very driven. I would say there was a point in my younger life where I chose to live, and I mean that in a very deep way. I had a very overwhelming and challenging childhood and adolescence, and when I saw the world for what it was, the only way I could accept living in it really was to do something about it, because I was horrified at the truth. And I think if you could take any child and look at their base human values and put them into adulthood, they would be the same. But for whatever it was, because of various things I experienced, I kind of emerged to the world very fresh, you know, so I saw it clean. I wasn't gradually brought in. I left a space that was very controlled and artificial and not real, to be quite honest, because of how I was brought up. And yeah, so I guess getting back to your question, too late would be the answer. To be quite honest, I've had to learn a lot. My intention and my resilience and my ability meant I could go a lot further than a lot of humans. And the first time I've really, really proactively managed my mental health in this role has been from January this year. Right, 11 years in, all that trauma, all that experience, witnessing the stabbings, stopping the stabbings, doing the first aid, losing young people. Everything you go through, working in a borough like Lambeth, working with young people, the humanitarian stuff was tough. But yeah, really, the first time this year, my biggest personal expenditure has been well-being.
Yeah.
If I'm not working, I'm either with my wife, investing in my relationship, or I'm looking after my well-being through rest or through positive hobbies.
Yeah.
So yeah, way too late, but yeah, I'd say from January onwards. I was aware though 3 years before, but yeah, because of circumstances, lifestyle, everything, I just didn't have the option to rest, you know?
I feel like sometimes, that's the thing as well, being on the front line, you feel like, or doing social justice work, you feel like you don't have the option to rest. Because I know for myself, sometimes you're like, if I disappear for 2 months, like, who's going to keep the momentum going? Like, where are the young people that, especially when you're working with youth, where are the young people going to go? Or how's the community going to survive if I step aside, especially when you're the key role? Who's going to help this person? And sometimes you want to step aside, but your phone won't stop ringing and people won't stop asking for help, and then you feel bad because you're like, this is my calling. I see this is something that I'm supposed to do. And it's like, it's difficult sometimes to put yourself first, but I don't feel like it's late. I feel like it's, sometimes
it happened.
It happens.
It happened when it happened,
Yeah.
and it happened when I was in the place with the resources. And also, in truth, you can put loads into your mental health, but you have to be ready. Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to well-being and mental health generally, everyone's kind of looking for a magic pill, a magic bullet, an answer. There is no answer. Everything's within you, right? And you have to be ready to open yourself and walk that path. And that, for me, I was ready. When I engaged with therapy, I was completely ready. I told my therapist, this is it, I'm here. I finally got to a place where I'm ready to really, really do this. And it's been like life-changing for me. But, we're coming out of COVID, BLM, Me Too, several huge societal things that happened. The economic impact of COVID, followed by Brexit.
Which was all like, what's going on?
So it hasn't been an easy seven-year arc. The L's have been real. Any entrepreneur out there knows. I watched my entire career get wiped out. Came back, done a lot of things, had my mental health wiped out by a situation that unfolded in this organisation, unfortunately. Rebuilt it, double turnover, grew. And now it's sort of in a space where I can make time for me. I've taken that. And now I make sure my staff do. I've learned the lesson, but more importantly, I now teach the lesson.
Yes, you have to. And I think that's one of my takeaways, is like making sure that others don't have to go through what you're going through, and just like you said, teaching people to, like, it's okay to rest, it's okay to take a step back, because if you're not 100%, then nothing you give to the community is going to be 100%. You have to be able to, if you can't give to yourself, you can't give to others.
I think we're taught to like I think suffering is an important part of growth. I think it's inevitability, whether it's in the gym, the intellectual gym, the treadmill of change, wherever you're operating. But it doesn't mean we have to stay there when we don't have to. You can just get stuck in the ring sometimes, and you're like, I don't even know what I'm punching at anymore. I'm just here because there's just this massive monster that I'm fighting. But yeah, this year has been like transformative for me. I'm not there, but I'm walking the path, and I'm very proud of that.
So, who would you say inspires you to do the work you do, and why?
like a lot. I'm quite an inspired person. I'm very fortunate. I mean, I have to talk about Stu. Stu is probably responsible for an entire practice of youth work that WISE UK embodies. This whole thing of youth leadership, young people solving their own problems. You know, when you combine him, what I learned at Serve On in humanitarianism, where you teach communities resilience to solve their own problems post-disaster. You don't just give them aid, you give them tools. You don't give them food, you build farms.
I like that, yeah.
I don't think we do that in the third sector in the UK enough. Nationally, I think we have far too many people getting food and not enough people getting tools.
Yes.
Who else? I mean, the community, hugely. Working with people like yourself, Yasmin. My wife's a big inspiration. I actually have no idea how she supports someone as driven as me. You know, it's crazy because when I get locked in, sometimes I don't get home till midnight, 10 days in a row, because that's where the work is at. And she could give me a harder time, but what I wake up to is the resources I need in the house, you know. She looks after me, she inspires me. And in truth, I've held the hand probably hundreds, if not thousands of people and stood with them as they've looked at their devil. And for every one of them, like, I carry that with me. I don't forget. I always come back around. If I can help, I do.
Yeah.
And that drives me. And I guess if I'm going to talk culturally, something I realised about myself actually, I always looked up to Martin Luther King, right? Peaceful protest, love, and you know, love and hope are a huge part of my practice. But what I realised about myself over the last 5 years is that I'm way more like Malcolm. Yeah. And I'm not aligning myself with him. Like, please don't take it that way. I'm not on that level. I'm not saying that on an egotistical. I'm just talking on a viewpoint. Yeah. When it comes to addressing the state and the monoform culture of society, I am aggressive, I am guerrilla, and I want to tear it down. And if I don't tear it down, I want to use, you know, I use this metaphor of what when I think about my practice in social capitalism, which is kind of what I do. I invert capitalist systems to solve social problems, right? That's kind of my niche, I guess. And that little boot of the oppressor, that's what's powering my foot pump. Yeah. You know, like that's my that's the water to my miller's wheel. And yeah, that whole decentralizing thing, equipping communities. But I didn't realize that about myself. I would never have thought, and that wasn't because I didn't like Malcolm X. I think, incredibly inspirational man. Yes. But loads and loads of people, writers, poets, music. I could like list thousands of inspirations. But yeah, mainly I draw my inspiration from the people I've met.
I love that. And the next question is, so how do you manage your well-being while I'm doing the community work?
So I'd like to say traditionally, quite badly. I would self-sacrifice in the early days. When WISE UK formed, I kind of had this metaphor that WISE UK was a village or a hut. And I was the perimeter fighting the wolves so that people have a safe space to manifest. Very unhealthy. Very healthy for everyone else, and quite enriching for me. And I guess in a way it's validating because I was building my esteem and my own identity while doing this. And I was finding out that there's not a wolf that scares me, right? There's nothing that frightens me or that I can't do. You know, that's what I've learned about myself. My success is defined by resources and time and nothing more, you know. But beyond that, this year, as I've really started, boundary. Boundary, understanding your boundaries. For me, I have PTSD, depression and anxiety are all things that I've battled with. Understanding my triggers, building toolkits and space around them, good communication with my team. I can now get to the point where if something triggers me and I'm struggling for emotional regulation, I can step out, I can stop a meeting, I can let go, I can tell people I need to move. Therapy is a big, big thing. Having someone, especially on a longer term arc, reflect, well, of course that upset you. Yes. It's like this, it's like this, it's like this. There's common threads to everything that affects me, you know, and common threads to why it motivates me. Yeah. And that's, you know, everything's very dualistic It's two sides of the same sword. I want to change the world because I've seen the darkness.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's why we seek the light, you know, while other people just coast,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah.
It's really good. I think from reflecting back from the question, like when you spoke about how it took you so long to get here, but I feel like in that time you've been able to actually set yourself some boundaries, go to therapy. Like communication is big, but also I think communication with yourself. What I realized about boundaries is, especially for me, I realized this month is I can set boundaries with everybody else, but I need to also set boundaries with myself as well.
Yeah.
You know? Because if I don't set boundaries with myself, then no one else is going to respect my boundaries. If I don't respect myself, like these are the boundaries, this is that, and then, you know.
All of that self-narrative.
Yes.
I used to have a brutal self-narrative, and do you know what actually made me realise how bad my narrative was watching the young people that I mentor, inspire, work with, whatever, repeating things that I say, like, come on, you know, this really brutal tone. You got this. Come on, don't quit. You're, you know, like barking at themselves. And I was like,
yeah.
That's how I talk to myself all the time.
That's how you do, Chris.
Yeah, I've got kinder.
Yeah.
I've got much kinder with myself, much more patient.
Yes.
And I've really become aware of that. I correct it. I think therapy is like critical.
Very.
We now provide and offer therapy to staff as an organisation. We can't really afford it. Shout out anyone who wants to sponsor YCUK doing that. Please do, but we pay that on top of salary. That's not something that costs anyone anything, but also we do that because that's a healthy boundary. Because traditionally, although I'm a mental health first aider, I would just get everyone. You know, I had this kind of quasi role filled with transference where I'm a mentor and a unchosen father figure. I never sought that, but you've been here. You've seen how many people would put me in that role, and then you've got to manage you in a practical business. But you're answering me like I'm your dad, and I'm there going, can you please just do the thing? Why do you want me to do the thing? Because I'm your manager, please just do it. But I'm asking nicely because I'm Chris, I'm a nice guy. But also self-education.
Yes.
I've read a lot. I believe, like I've landed on some principles that are really helping me now. I'm really working on identifying my authentic self. I'm really working on like having an ideal persona, something I picked up speaking to Jonathan, who's going to be on later recently. What's interesting about those guys is they're sort of where I was when I started. Not in terms of their career, they're very successful young men. I mean, their openness to growth, like he's listening to Earl Nightingale. I listened to that for 2 years of my life before I went to bed, right? The Strangest Secret. And just meeting him again and bumping into him reminded me of the energy I had before this happened, and I became so overwhelmed and my sole focus was developing me, not changing the world. And it was really refreshing because I'd forgotten that version of me. You know, that version of Chris had been swept into a corner for a decade. And I was like, you used to love yourself in a really positive way. And I'm rediscovering him, reconnecting with him, and it's great. And what's even better is the Chris I'm reconnecting with is meeting a Chris that has grown in terms of capability as a creative, as a leader, as a man, as a husband, as a friend, you know, and it's great. Like, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
If you didn't do the job you're doing now, what would you do? If you wasn't, so we had the ideal world of you not needing to be on the front line. The world was the way we would love the world to be perfect. Everyone had equal opportunity. What would be the job that you would do if you didn't have to do the change making? Interesting.
So I'm already planning what I want to do next and what I want to do in my 50s. I just turned 40, and that's just how my brain is. I'd be a carpenter is one of the things. It's something I love.
Yes, you do.
And I'm good at it, and I'm passionate about it, and it's something I want to train in more. I'd be a writer or filmmaker probably, either a documentary filmmaker using my social intelligence for that, and my passion for storytelling, or I'd be a writer. But these are all things that I'm starting to redo anyway. Like I've done a lot of spoken word and other things. I like to work with that. I think that's what I'd be, but that's now. If I'd never done this, I don't think I would be any of those things.
I like that.
Do you know what I mean?
Because that gets you, yeah. That gets
Yeah,
you
I've been carved by the life I've led, you know. So yeah.
I like that answer. I love that. So, what's one thing you'd like people to know about you that don't know you? That people that just know you as Chris, the entrepreneur, the change maker, that kind of person. This is who I am.
That I'm not bulletproof. I think the fact that I'm a capable person and that I project as very like well-spoken, very educated. I left school at 15. I showed back up to do my GCSEs. I didn't get A-levels, didn't get into uni till I was 21, didn't go through UCAS. I just ran up on the uni and ambushed them and said, let me in. Legit, I just went up there and sat outside the guy's office and was like, put me on your degree, innit?
You will get me on this course today, like.
Yeah.
All of this application long. I love that.
I'm neurodiverse. I didn't find that out till I lost my stepdad last year. Clearing out the paperwork, I found out my family had hid a diagnosis from me. So I went through the whole of education thinking I was disorganised and this. So I think what people see of me and the truth of me is very different. I don't talk about my story. I may do going into doing my work. But, you know, I was homeless as an adolescent, battled addiction and really extreme youth violence and grew up in a very, very emotionally complicated space. I'm not like a super capable, gifted guy who's drifted into change making because he got bored of making money in media. I'm someone whose career in media exploded and refused to leave change making. And now I do both simultaneously. So I think there's like a misassumption. People meet me going, well, this guy must already be rich. Yes. Nah. Like I'm really out here, really doing this. And in truth, if you look at the research for people with like one or two of the lived experiences that I've overcome, it's pretty rare they make it to my age as a functional adult. Most will suffer, disappear for a variety of mental health reasons, go into addiction, not go into the criminal justice system. And I'm very proud that I'm none of those things, but I think that's like a big misrepresentation of me. And because people think of me as this kind of bulletproof, God, he just doesn't fucking quit. Or people tell me I'm lucky. I hate it when people tell me I'm lucky because I'm like, bro, I have sat suffering for hours, hanging on by my fingernails. This isn't luck, this is resilience and commitment personified. Maybe because I don't talk about my story, people just make a lot of assumptions about me. I only ever use it in like disclosure spaces. You talk to me about your experience, I'll share mine. But I don't walk into a youth centre and go, hi kids, I was a naughty boy. Do you want to hear my story? Because I don't believe in catharsis. I'm not there to heal myself. I'm there to heal and help young people.
Even learning that and hearing that, it shows how like it's just inspiring. It shows that there's so much determination. There's so much, like you said, resilience, and it actually just shows like even your whole story like just shows like you are the definition of like people talk about things, but your definition of I talked about it, but I did something about it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't just complain. I did, and I think that's how I try to navigate when I do community work. I'm always talking and cussing at the government and things like that. But I always believe that these guys, I believe like if they wanted to do something for us, they would have done it years ago. So as a community, we need to come back and be like, okay, what can we do for each other? How can we empower our young people? How can we train our young people? Because what I believe is like, if they can do that for their kids, as a community, we should be pouring that into our kids and, you know what I mean, and investing in our kids. And if we come together as a community, like what YCK is showing is if you invest in young people, you would create young people that would be not only media, that could be academics, that could be on so many levels. If you
completely.
Put that love into them, because they're putting that love into their kids. They won't do for your kids what you have to do for yours, and that's what I've seen.
I think what communities also undervalue a lot is cultural identity and security. One of the things, like I've been on this cultural leadership program, and it's something I hide it, but I find it very upsetting. Is the people that are able to talk about the support and love they had growing up and how much that inspired them. And I'm not going to talk too much about my family. They're still alive. Some of them are very vulnerable adults. When you've had to form your own identity in spite of the people around you, and when you change, they're watching the person that they loved as a child die, right? And they fight you tooth and nail. The more healthy you become, the more dysfunctional, and the more they try and drag you back. And that stuff's brutal, really brutal. You know, I had to go through like a whole grieving process of the expectations of the relationships I thought I had. Like, I don't have anyone I phone when I get good news. I don't have that. I haven't had that in a long time, like over a decade, like most of my adult life, but I thought I had that. You know, it wasn't really till previous relationships, parents were like, you know, there was a man, Dennis, I should mention, I should have said Dennis really inspired me. There's two men who changed my life. There's Stuart and there's Dennis Boyce. Buried him on my birthday last year. But he was one of the first people to really see me and listen to me and take me under his wing. And, you know, like people talk about, like, obviously I'm white, but I have a very good understanding of Caribbean culture. That's because my main father figure was Bajan. Right? Most of my learning and identity forming was sipping rum in the BCA in Birmingham with Dennis and Veronica. So anyway,
So another question is, what does your ideal rest day look like?
So my ideal rest day, if I'm in premium mental health and I can manage a good rest day, not a fatigue day, I think there's a clear difference there. There's like, I'm done out, I'm on the sofa, Netflix.
And I'm just there like...
and I'm passive, right? Because I have no ability to process. That's not a good rest day. That's just physical rest. A good rest day for me is up early, good breakfast, stretch, workout. In an ideal world, I'd have some kind of physical hobby to get on with. I would have something non-digital, completable, and I'd work on that. Something I just want to do for no one else. Clearing off, like, life admin is always very good for me. Like, organised wardrobe, organised clothes, making sure I'm contributing to the household as a husband, you know. That's like a good wellbeing day. Gym is a big thing. I go to a fancy gym that has a sauna, spa and all that. Like, it's great. This was crazy, right? I had never even been to a fancy gym before. The whole time I'd got fit multiple times in my life. And I would just be like, blocks of wood in the garden, do you know what I mean? Out there on some like, I'd watched too many kung fu films probably with Mr. Lee back in the day, and I just thought you just trained, innit? You suffered. And this year, I was speaking to my therapist and I was like, I was really struggling because obviously I got hit by a car last year and now I can't cycle because A, I can't do that to my wife again. B, I've permanently damaged the nerves in both my arms as a result of that accident. And it mashed me up so much. I can't do it even though I love cycling and know in 10 years it's the only time it's happened. Once is enough, innit? So speaking to my therapist, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go swimming because that's low impact. And I've basically been living in pain ever since that accident, continuous pain. I'm in pain today, right? And I was like, you know what? There's like this, I can't say the brand on it, but there's this fancy gym. I'm a go. And I just did it. And it's mad expensive.
Me and my sister used to live with my dad, had a membership.
Okay. It's wild though.
They're nice.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was little, my dad took us to one. I don't know why he thought it was Serena Williams. He took us to we was living our best life. Swimming, tennis. Could we swim?
No,
it is nice because when you think about the gym, you think, oh, it's wet. But we wasn't. That's what was enjoyment.
I love it. I mean,
sauna,
steam room, saltwater pool, jacuzzis.
I love that spa.
And unfortunately, I was in a car crash a couple of weeks ago. It's the most Christoff Taylor thing ever, right? So I hurt my back, but I'll be back in for this weekend, and I can't wait. And my ideal day is an early start, a very physical day, I believe that physical work is essential in processing. Absolutely essential. Long walks are another thing I love. I walked to the Thames estuary to Victoria. It was like 42,000 steps in a day. I could have kept walking. You know, it's a superpower, walking. And if I'm going to really invest in my well-being, like if you were like Chris, you have any budget, I would be wild camping somewhere with nothing digital, with my own resources, left to my own devices, with a book, with some music, maybe like some cognac, let's be real.
I wish I could say the camping. I would do that glamping, because I did that. I booked the glamping for next year. Being away from being away from everyone. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's investment. Like I said, that's what I started to invest in, spas even going to spa once a year, and just doing things that are different to feel well-being. Walking.
Yeah.
Start walking more.
I think with nature, there's a big misconception. People think they're leaving home to go to nature, forgetting the entire history of mankind. Yeah. And you're not. You're going home, leaving the city. The city is not home. It's not. When I look at cities, I see human zoos. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And there's a reason we find rhythm and peace when we're amongst nature, even if you're glamping. Yeah. You know, even a 1 hour walk in the woods at the right time of day is blessed. Yeah. You know, whatever it is. So it
is an investment. It literally is an investment, I think. And I would recommend to people, I would recommend counselling, I'd recommend spas, I would recommend camping, glamping, trying things that you've never tried out before. Just being adventurous and being a child again.
That's a good point.
I love it.
If you know me, I'm always on some shit. Mm-hmm. I'm always doing something. If I'm always learning. Yeah. I'm always trying to do things, whether it's learning to cook something new, a new skill. Yeah, and I live for that. Yeah. You know, I love learning, which is why it's so crazy I couldn't survive education. You know, because I love it. I really, I don't care how hard the lesson is, as long as there's time in my life to learn it. I'm there for it. You know.
That is good. That is your ideal rest day sound and seems amazing. What's a quote that you live by?
I'm only just kind of started sharing this publicly, so I have a mantra. Yeah. That or a thing that sums me up. That if you've ever seen anything I've created, it would have been written there before it's painted, and I've been doing it for a long time, which is out of darkness comes light, always. And that is almost in a statement that's a self-portrait. Yeah. No matter what happens to me, what I experience, what I go through, I know I will grow back stronger and rebloom. I've been reading a lot lately about post-traumatic growth. Highly evidenced thing. The more authentic you become in healing. Every time you lose something, it's a chance to regrow stronger. Yeah. It's a chance to heal, but it's also a chance to realign with a more authentic version of yourself. Because most of your stuff comes when you get pushed into inauthentic spaces or spaces where you're overstretched, whatever. So out of darkness comes light. Always is. It's probably what will be on my headstone.
Yeah. If you could have superpowers, what would they be and why?
I mean, there's the real answer, and then there's the answer that I'd enjoy, you know. What superpower would I have? This is a big one because of what we've been talking about, and I'm over deep in it massively. I'm very happy with who I am now, so there's not I don't feel the need to change anything about me. I feel superpowered as a human because I'm developing myself, but maybe if I had Superman's powers, I could disrupt on a global scale and not be stopped. I would not want to be one of the people in control if I got those powers.
Me too. It's cuts for everybody.
Yeah, or the ability to control the internet. I think if I could control data, I could redistribute wealth, I could redistribute information, I could remove all the misinformation algorithms that plague your generation, blinding them, drowning them in conspiracy theories, making everyone hate each other. You know, it wouldn't actually take much for society to realign. We just need to move away from the kind of traditional kind of psychopathy-led leadership model and more to an empathy-led leadership model. And I really believe in 2 or 3 generations we'll be there.
Yeah. And the final question is, what's one piece of advice you'd give to other change makers?
One piece.
So much with like one.
There's lots. There's lots. I have a lot of mantras in it. You've known me a long time. I have like the Chris Taylor rule book of existence.
Got to produce. You got to write it. Publish that.
I think working and identifying your own authentic self is one of the most important. I literally think it's the point of being a human, is working out who you are and manifesting your music, whatever that may be. So one thing I think is, if in doubt, be authentic, because you'll never regret telling your truth. Telling your truth doesn't mean you get to brutalize others with, because then you're not being authentic. If you're a kind person, your truth does not need to harm others. Use your social intelligence. But sometimes I have to write hard emails. I've had to discipline people I've cared about. I've had to face very, very tough situations. But you can never regret if you can go back and like be like, I was myself in that moment. You can't really regret that.
Yeah.
You know, there's no shame in being who you are and being true to yourself. Shame comes from when the ego and the subconscious become like misaligned, you know, for whatever reason. Yes.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for coming on the episode and being the first guest. And
How can people
find you, follow you, your work and everything?
So obviously, Young Creators UK, Instagram. Coming into next year, you're going to see my own personal work going out at christofftaylor.com, at Mr. Christoff Taylor on Instagram. I'm slowly getting to a place where I won't be a ghost anymore and I will become visible. This is part of healing. I'm going to stop taking my applause under the stage now and step up and take the chair that the community I feel has demanded I take. And it's quite exciting. So next year, watch this space.
Watch this space, guys. Thank you so much and stay tuned for episode 2.